Each year, thousands of passionate tourists visit the Old Stone House in Brooklyn. Why? Because this farmhouse is where the American Revolutionary War almost ended moments after it began. If not for the courage and dedication of the 1st Maryland Regiment of 400 volunteer militiamen, we would not be standing here today as proud Americans. In the summer of 1776, the British, who wanted to crush the revolution immediately, sent hundreds of ships, one of the biggest armadas in history, to New York Harbor. Led by General William Howe, the British formulated a plan to attack General George Washington and his Continental Army in New York. On August 22nd, General Howe landed 15,000 troops on Long Island. And only 4 days later, the British began their assault on the Continental Army. The British split their troops and managed to flank the American forces by sending a force through the Jamaica Pass, which was lightly guarded. This flanking maneuver trapped the Continental Army in Brooklyn. On August 27th, 2,000 British troops occupied and surrounded the Old Stone House. Trapped by the British, General William Alexander, self-proclaimed Lord Stirling, was determined to engage the British at the Old Stone House and cut through the enemy forces. In an act of courage and patriotism, the remainder of the regiment under his command, now commonly known as the Maryland 400, attacked the British to allow the remainder of the American forces to retreat across the Gowanus Creek to the safety of the Brooklyn Heights. Although they were outnumbered 5-1, it did not matter. Each individual soldier understood that what they were fighting for was bigger than themselves. The freedom of their children, their wives, and the future generations of Americans was at stake. When the fighting at the Old Stone House ceased, 256 Marylanders lay lifeless on the ground. 100 more men were wounded and only 9 made it back to the American front lines. Roughly 65% of the attacking force perished in one of the largest fatality rates of any battle in American history. As Washington gazed upon this horrific scene from a nearby hill, he could only comment, "Good God, what brave fellows I must this day lose." But the death of these valiant soldiers did not go in vain. The extra time they had bought with their lives ended the battle for the day. While the American forces remained camped in their fortification on the Brooklyn Heights, the British made plans for a siege of the American position. To confront this critical situation, Washington gathered his commanders to discuss possible initiatives. They proposed 2 plans. Plan number 1 was to fight to the end, to unite the entire Continental Army in a fateful attempt to ensure that the British would not invade further into their homes. However, even then, they would still be significantly outnumbered, and the cost of failure was simply too high. Plan number 2 was to evacuate the Continental Army to Manhattan by crossing the East River. But this recourse required time, and time was luxury that Washington and his comrades did not have. A nor'easter and unfavorable winds prevented British reinforcements from sailing up the East River and trapping the American forces on the Brooklyn Heights. 2 days of rain helped delay the inevitable British assault. On the night of August 29th and into the early morning hours during a heavy fog, the entire Continental Army was evacuated to Manhattan without the loss of a single life. The Maryland 400 had done their job. Their sacrifice had saved the revolution. Today, as our nation approaches its 250th anniversary, American soldiers continue to risk their lives to uphold certain unalienable rights endowed upon us by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These brave men and women are willing to sacrifice anything to defend the core values of our nation: freedom, justice, equality. But they cannot do it alone. As citizens of this great nation, we must, like our soldiers, face each issue with relentless courage and conviction. We must work with our friends, our families, our neighbors to defend democratic values from tyrannical practices. Together, we must continue the legacy that the Maryland 400 left behind. We must ensure that the next 250 years will be as venerable as the last. May God bless America. Thank you.